So we're here in the library and we want to find a good referencing guide. I'm doing APA. Woohoo! So I can go to the guides and just find my APA guide. Hurrah! And I can go there and I'm good. But you know what? I'm also as lazy as heck. So I'm just going to Google JCU APA. Oh, hello. What's that then? It's our APA referencing guide. Can you do that for all other citation styles? To an extent. It goes a little bit further down the list. APA is the most popular guide we have on the face of the earth, because it's the most commonly used style at JCU, but it's not the only style at JCU. If you head over to the complete referencing suite, which you can do by going to, if you go to our homepage, at some point, it's going to do it. And you go to guides, and you just look at all the guides. Whee! So there's a whole range of referencing guides there, and you can see that we've got some of them are big enough to need their own guides. But if you go to the referencing guide, it also links out to some of our other styles. Like Chicago, we haven't got a full guide for Chicago, but we link out to resources for Chicago. We have some tips for Chicago. We have some tips for MLA, but we link out to the resources for those as well. So a few of these have their own guides, some of them don't. Let's go take a look at APA. We're already in APA? I feel like we were already there at some point. Who cares? So for every guide, what you want to do for the source that you found is you want to know how you need to lay certain things out. So they'll all have particular patterns for what you do for your authors, depending on. Actually, let's take a step back for a second. Let's take a step back and take a look at how there's two sides to referencing. There's your in-text citation, and then there's your reference list. So your in-text citation, and I've got an example of this in my handy dandy slides. So your in-text citation is in the text, right where you've used that information. You just put a little in-text citation there to let people know what source you used for that particular information. It's important to remember in your assignments, your lecturers don't care about your opinion, they care about your informed opinion. So every time you've used information that should come from somewhere, you should have a citation for it. That's referencing appropriately, and that's making sure that you don't plagiarize. So if you've used information that did come from somewhere, always have a citation for it. If you've used information that should have come from somewhere, have a citation for it. Go find a source for that. Don't just make it up off the top of your head because you are the font of all wisdom. It doesn't matter if you've been working in this field for 35 years. The lecturer doesn't care about your opinion, they care about your informed opinion. So make sure that you can find someone to back you up. And I'm actually going to take a step back from that to suggest that you don't write your entire assignment and then try to find people who agree with you. That is a terrible way to write an assignment. Do the research first. Think about what they said, and then write your assignment based on your informed opinion. As you're writing your stuff in the text, know what you were using from your handy dandy little research sheet. Make that a little bit bigger. Yay. And then come back and make sure that this information came from that source. So I'm going to cite it here. Oops, back, I tell you. There we go. So what you then want to do is in your reference list, you're going to put the full citation details so that anybody who is reading your paper can go find that source. And that reference detail will be structured depending on the style that you're using. So if you go back to the guide, there's usually some information about the style at the top, including what you do for your in-text citation. Is it going to be the author and the date? Is it going to be just a number? And then there'll be a little bit of information about how to lay that out and what to do in text and whether or not you're including page numbers and things like that. And then there's the information about your reference list, and that will tell you how you set out your reference list and lay things out like that. For almost all of your styles, what you do in text will be exactly the same regardless of what you're citing, whether it's a book chapter or a chapter of an edited book, a book where the whole book was written by the same people. I'll stop a little bit and lean on that one. So with books, you can either have the whole book was written by the same person or people, in which case that's just one source of information with one set of authors to cite. Or you could have an edited book where each of the chapters were contributed by different authors, and there's editors who are responsible for the book as a whole. If the chapter has its own author, then you cite the chapter. If the chapter doesn't have its own author, but the whole book was just written by the same people, then you cite the whole book. So if I was citing a book chapter, I'd come here and I'd go book chapter. And this is the pattern that I'm using for the chapter. Here's some examples of that pattern with the information filled in. I'm going to get the details for my book chapter and just put it in this pattern. The details that I have to look at, and I'm going to zoom in on this, I will embiggen it. The noble spirit embiggens the heart of man. You have to watch for the punctuation. You have to watch for things like, how is it laid out? There's a hanging indent for APA. For AMA, the numbers are all there, and then the text all lines up in like a little block next to that. You have to look for, where does the year go? How much information do you put in that field with the year? Are there full stops all over the place? How do they do the titles? Oh my God, the titles. This is the thing that's going to ruin your life. This is the hardest thing about referencing, honestly, is the titles, because each style has rules about how to format the titles, and it is so, so easy to stuff that up. So with APA, the only titles that get title case, so title case is when you have a word in all of the major titles, whereas sentence case, you format it exactly like a sentence. So if it was turning up in the middle of a paragraph in the middle of your paper, you wouldn't put capitals on all of the words. You'd only put capitals on the first letter of the sentence and any names. APA wants all of its titles to be in sentence case, not title case, except for journal titles. Why? I don't know. They're insane. Ours is not to reason why, ours is but to do. And try not to die. So what you got to do is you got to check your titles to make sure that they're in the right case. Some titles are going to be in regular font, some titles, or Roman, some titles are going to be in italic font. You got to make sure that you've got the italics in the right places. So those are the two things that stuff people up the most. The two mistakes that people make the most with APA in particular is the case on your titles and the italics, either being in the wrong place or not being there at all. So make sure you're looking at the pattern to make sure that you've got the right case and the right italics in the right spot. The other thing that stuffs people up a lot is having extra information in there that shouldn't be in there when they've copied and pasted it from a source. What did we just do? We copied and pasted this from a source. So we probably copied and pasted some mistakes over with it. The authors might be misformatted. They might, I'm just going to get rid of my paragraph marks. Just give me a second so that it looks a little bit better. I keep those paragraph marks on when I need to actually see what my spaces are actually made out of and what they look like. But if I turn those off, you can see what it looks like. And here's a problem. What did I just tell you about capitals in your titles?
That we don't
You
use
don't. Okay, this is actually a journal article, so the fact that the journal title has title case is actually right. So if I went back to the guide and I went looking for my journals instead of my book chapters, so let's come down and look at journal articles. So this is the pattern that I should be following. And this is where my italics should be. So I need to make sure I've got my italics in the right place. I need to make sure that I've got the right pattern of case for my titles. So the title of the article shouldn't have capitals. The title of the journal should. The volume number should be in italics, and there's no space there. There's no space between the italics, the journal, and the issue number. And then I've got the page number, and there's no P's in front of my page number in a journal article. There are P's in front of your page number in a book chapter. Why? Because they're insane. Once again, ours is not to reason why, ours is to pay attention. So, pay attention, 007. If I go back to what I've got here, and this is wrong, I got to fix it. Thankfully, there are options inside Word to actually fix that for me nice and fast. So I'm just going to try the sentence case button. It doesn't always work. Let's give it a crack. No. All right, let's just make everything lowercase. And then I'll go back to the words that should have a capital letter, and I'll capitalize each word for those. So the start of any sentence or the start of any title or subtitle Do. Page numbers are fine. The rest of that's fine. The DOI is fine. I'm going to make sure I check that. The DOI is one that tends to come over with problems. So make sure the DOI looks like this. And if it doesn't have a DOI, you would use the URL instead. And if it doesn't have a DOI or a URL, you just don't put anything there. Sometimes that information's not there. However, if you're not sure whether or not the
What
information
would I
isn't
do if I
there,
was really, yeah.
oh look, there's a button where you can contact the librarian to ask for help. If it was there during our opening hours, you'd be able to ask us live and we'd get back to you and say, oh, actually there is an issue number, it's just over here. Or there genuinely isn't an issue number, you just skip that part of the pattern. Or so if we're offline, you can just leave us a question and we'll get back to you via email. Send us the link to what you're looking at so that we can help you out. It's amazing how many people ask us for help with something and then they don't actually send us a link to what they're looking at. So yeah, do that. But you can leave us that question and we'll say, oh wait, yeah, here's the information that you're looking for. It's hiding over in this corner. Or, yep, there definitely isn't an issue number or URL or something to use for this article. You can just skip that part of the pattern and go to the next bit. Something else that's wrong with this particular reference in terms of APA, and I just looked at it over here as well. Can you see what's happening over here in this one? I've mentioned it before. Look at the formatting. It doesn't have a hanging indent, but it should. So make sure you're actually looking at the pattern. Look at the pattern. Make sure it fits. And like I said, it's easy in principle. And if you're somebody who loves jigsaw puzzles, this might be really up your alley. But you actually do have to pay attention to the details because the devil is in the details. And the devil is APA, in case you were wondering. So this should have a hanging indent. I'm going to go up to my paragraph button and find where it tells me how to put in a hanging indent. Hanging, yay. There's a shortcut for that. If you hold down Control or Command if you're in a Mac and press T, cool bananas. There's a lot that you can do with Word. Don't try and do it yourself. Let the machines do most of the formatting because they're better at it. But definitely check what the machine's doing. Make sure it hasn't made any mistakes. Whenever you get a citation from any source, you have to do two things. Thing number one is you have to check that the details are correct because sometimes they stuff it up. I have seen instances where the tool, for some strange reason, dropped off the first author for everything that it was citing. Who knows? Nobody. We had to log a job to get that fixed. But that was an issue that the machine had where something in its system just said first author, who needs that? So it just didn't
Brain had
include
a
them.
little hiccup.
Yeah.
But if you did the right thing and checked
Hmm.
the source before trusting the machine to get it right, you'll be fine.
So the very first thing you need to do is check that, make sure that all the details are correct. You've got the right author, you've got the right title, you've got any information that's missing. For instance, has it missed the page numbers? You may have to go back and find the page numbers. Maybe it has an article number instead of page numbers and you have to find that instead. Is it missing the DOI or URL? Can you go find that information, bring it back? Has it added information that's not part of that pattern? Get rid of it. If it's not part of the pattern, don't keep it. So it may have decided to tell you that this is a review article. Nobody cares. That's not part of the pattern. That's not an APA isn't interested in that, so get rid of that. So thing number one is you always check to make sure the details are correct. Thing number two is you go to the guide to make sure the pattern is correct. And you pay attention to all the little details because, like I said, the devil is in the details and the devil is APA. Or AMA if you're doing medicine and dentistry, or Harvard if you're doing some of the business subjects, or MLA if you're doing English and modern languages, or Chicago if you're doing history, or IEEE if you're doing engineering, or hey, tell you what, maybe you should check with your lecturer what style you're using
I
for the
was just
subjects.
going to type in the chat, but it's quicker to talk. Don't panic. We're not going
Yeah.
to make you do all the styles
Yeah.
in this teaching period. I did have a terrible experience once where I did 3 subjects in different disciplines and each one used different styles. We won't do that to you, but it might happen down the track. And once
Mm.
that starts, you'll be familiar with this whole process. So it's all good.
Yep. And they should actually mention inside your subject, either where it talks about the referencing or somewhere else, sorry, the assessment, where it talks about the assessment, or somewhere else. It should mention inside your subject somewhere what the style you're expected to use for the assignment is. And if it doesn't, ask your lecturer and ask them in the discussion board so that everyone else gets the benefit of the answer as well. Okay. What the hell was I talking about? Oh yeah, referencing. Let's come back to my slide because I want to talk to you about something. This is what I call the modern way of doing referencing. The modern way of doing referencing is to get a machine to do the heavy lifting for you and then just fix its mistakes. However, it's easier for you to be able to spot the machine's mistakes if you do a couple of references the old school way. So the old school way, which some people might refer to as the hard way, is to actually follow the pattern yourself by hand. So go find the article that you're doing and get all of those bits and pieces and actually put them in there. So you find your authors and you put your authors in there in the proper pattern. You find your year and you put the year in where it belongs in the proper pattern. You find the title of the article and the title of the journal. Oh crap, you've abbreviated the title of your journal, and APA doesn't use journal abbreviations. Well, now I'm going to have to find the full title, but what ifs. So go through and find all the pieces of information and put it in the pattern in the right place with the right formatting. Once you've done that for a couple of journal articles, never do it again because you've got the hang of it. So you should be able to hopefully go look at a pre-formatted one and have a good idea of what it should be when you go looking at the guide to check the pattern to make sure it's right. After you've been doing this for a couple of semesters, maybe it'll start feeling like second nature and you'll just feel in your bones. What am I supposed to check again? Oh yeah, the titles. I should check the case of the titles. The case is usually a problem. I'll check that. Um, I would suggest for every new style, if you've never done that style before, do a couple of journal articles, do a couple of books, do a couple of book chapters, do a couple of web pages, just to get the hang of it. And then you'll probably always have to do web pages the hard way, actually, most of the time. But then you can start using the tools to shortcut it to the easy way and then just fix their mistakes when you find them. If you've actually only got one or two assignments to do, and a lot of it's like web pages and government documents and things like that, you'll probably end up doing most of it by hand just because that actually is faster sometimes. It takes more time. You are less prone to make mistakes. The copy and pasty version, you are more likely to miss the mistakes. So make sure that if you are doing the copy pasty version, that you definitely look as if you were marking their work. So if you look at it as if you're marking their work to make sure it's right, hopefully when the lecture marks your work, it's great. Using software. So we just talked about using software. Obviously, there's the suggested citations in the databases and the tools that you can just copy and paste and move in, but there's also software that you can use to actually do most of the heavy lifting for you. So if you hear people talking about things like EndNote and Mendeley and Zotero, site you like, all sorts of inbuilt software, they will do most of the stuff. They'll actually plop in the in-text citation where it belongs and then build your reference list for you. And that's a hell of a lot more work that's been done by the technology. I'll give you a heads up, AI sucks. I had a wonderful conversation with Copilot where I had to tell it about 4 times that it gave me the wrong citation. I asked it to cite a journal article for me using APA style, really simple question for it. And it goes, certainly, here's APA citation. I said, okay, but the title's wrong. And it goes, oh, yes, you're absolutely right. Here's this one. It's completely correct. No, the title's still wrong. Oh, yes, you're absolutely right. Sorry about that. Here's this one. It's definitely correct. Okay, you fixed the title, but now you've made a new mistake in the page numbers. Oh, yes, you're absolutely good
How
Lord.
long did you persist?
Well, I was interested to see how long it would take it before it gave me something that was right. That particular
Mhm.
session, it did not. But I tried it again a few months later and it was better. So like I said, the tools are improving all the time. And the more feedback you give them, the better it gets. And I reckon in a couple of years, APA will not suck. Sorry, not APA, AI will not suck when you use it to use APA citation. But right now it does. So
Don't
I
trust
would
it.
recommend not using AI for that sort of stuff. There is an inbuilt referencing tool in Word. Every now and then someone discovers it and they get very excited. It sucks worse. They have not updated the referencing styles for decades. They're still using outdated versions of the style. We're on to the 7th edition of APA and the 11th edition of AMA and the 18th edition of Chicago. It's still using the 6th edition of APA and the 15th edition of Chicago. It's rubbish. So do not use the inbuilt citation tool in Word. Um, it shouldn't be there. They're not updating it. They should just remove it. If you want to use a tool like EndNote, Mendeley, or Zotero, you need to know what you're doing. There is a learning curve. It's not set and forget. Definitely, if you're using EndNote, you'll need to come along to one of our training sessions to have a look at some of the videos that we've got to help you out with it. And you'll need to give yourself time to learn how to use the tool. So factor that in as well. That if you are going to use a tool, a specialist tool, you'll need to give yourself time to learn how to use it. In the grand scheme of things for undergraduate stuff, Zotero is probably faster to teach yourself how to use. So if you just wanted to do something where it's real quick and fast, Zotero is probably the easiest one to teach yourself how to use. We do run classes on EndNote though, and Zotero is free. So you can just install Zotero and start playing with it and away you go. EndNote, I'll just quickly show you EndNote, what it looks like. I've got an EndNote document sitting here somewhere.
I have EndNote trauma. You might
Okay.
trigger
So this
that.
is this is an EndNote. This is my EndNote library, one of my EndNote libraries. I've got all my citations in here, so some of them I had to put in myself. Some of them I could just send from the tool I was using into EndNote. It's got all its details over here. I can edit it, make sure the bits are right. I can add my notes in here. Somewhere in here there's notes. Maybe yep. So I can add notes to it. And then when I look at my summary, I can say APA 7 and it's doing its thing. And if I go back to my Word document, let's just do magic. Okay, so I want to add a citation into that one. I've got EndNote built into my Word document. So I'm just going to go, oops, let's stay there. Grab the citation I want. Insert that into Word. It's going to put the in-text referencing where I put it. It's going to put the full in-text reference, sorry, the full reference list entry at the end of the document. Once again, it's a machine. What have I told you about the machines? Don't trust them. Always mark their work before you hand it in. So always check their work before you hand it in. The most important thing to remember when it comes to your assignment is that all mistakes are your mistakes. Your lecturer will not accept, oh, but I used EndNote as an excuse for handing in faulty referencing. If you're getting marked on your referencing, you're getting marked on your referencing. EndNote's not getting marked on your referencing. Zotero is not getting marked on your referencing. Google's not getting marked on your referencing. And Copilot's not getting marked on your referencing. You are. So you need to make sure that it's right before you hand it in. And if you asked somebody else to do some work with you, you'd check on their work before you hand it in, right? Do the same thing with all your tools. So by all means, use the tools, but check their work before you hand it in because their mistakes aren't their mistakes, they're your mistakes once you submit your assignment. Okay, we already looked at that. Last thing I'm going to mention, and I have gone way over time. I do apologize for that. Lisa, why didn't you stop me?
You know that I'm almost as bad as you.
Yes, but you're
Maybe
supposed to be
worse.
the responsible adult in the room.
No, I don't
Okay,
adult.
fine. So what can we help you with? Well, we can give you advice and point you in the right direction. We can show you some guides that will give you some more advice and some examples and things like that. We can take a look at your search terms and make suggestions for things that you could change or work on, but we can't do the search for you. That's your job. We can help you identify a resource if you're not sure, and we can help you learn how to identify them yourself. We have this approach with students that we try to teach you how to do it yourself. Because you know the saying, if you build a man a fire, he's warm for the night. But if you set him on fire, he's warm for the rest of your life. So we try to empower you to know what you're doing for next time. And what we really hope is that you will learn from the answers, from the questions that you've already asked, so that you ask us new and exciting and different answers as you go through questions, as you go through the course of your studies. We can look at your references and give you feedback. We can't fix them for you because guess what you're being marked on? Your references. So we will point out things like take a look at the titles. The title should be formatted like this. Can you see what you've done with your title? And that's the sort of help that we might give you for that. We might say, all right, with all of your web pages, there's something that you should be doing. Fix it for this one. Make sure that you've fixed it for all your other web pages as well. So that sort of stuff. And you can actually walk into the library and talk to whoever's on the desk. You can use the chat button. They're all over the shop. So like I said, they are in where is my they're in all the guides. So all the guides has the chat button right there. If you go into OneSearch, it's sitting in OneSearch as well. If you find your way to the library homepage, it's on a bunch of pages, like the I'm a Student page, but there's also that Connect with Us button. And if we're not there to answer the question live, you can leave it with us and we'll get back to you. Does anyone have any questions right now? And also, you
Yep.
can stop me in the street and ask me random questions. It has happened. I don't care. Like I said, librarians live to answer questions. The stereotype of librarians shushing you is completely false. We're more likely to be talking really loudly about whatever it is you didn't even ask us. You asked somebody else. We're answering it anyway.
Also, do keep in mind that you are going to hopefully be in subjects where this information will come up again. And if we as academics can't answer your question, we will 100% be referring you to the librarians. And if it's APA specific, quite possibly dropping Sharon's name in there.
I get asked a lot of APA questions.
On that note, I think it's a really excellent time that we perhaps look at saying goodbye unless people have
Yes.
questions. If not, thank you for your fabulous engagement. No worries, Karen. That's excellent to have as an end. You are
Right.
very welcome and hopefully catch you soon.